Folks, welcome to another Sense and Respond Press webinar with our latest author, Alla Weinberg. Super excited that you're here. Nice to see everybody, and thanks for working with us with the last minute rescheduling of this. We appreciate you being able to make the alternative date as well. Alla, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm past the big freeze. Excited to be here.
That's good. Yeah, you were saying it's the big thaw now. Everything is doing pretty well out there in Texas, which is great. Terrific. Nice to see everybody. As we get started here, we're going to take care of just a little bit of housekeeping. And it's always nice. I know it's cliche, and I try to start, but I am always curious to see where folks are from. So if you want to tell us where you're calling in from on the chat. Always nice to see if you feel comfortable doing that. I'd love to get a sense of where everybody is these days. Just type and share with us. Always good to get a sense of where it is. Wow. Tennessee.
Very international.
Yeah, Tennessee and Lebanon right off the bat. Amazing. Just to show you how the reach, which is great. Terrific. Wow, really? All over the world. Look at that, Glasgow. My daughter might end up in college in Glasgow here in the next 6 months. We're going to find out very shortly. Very exciting. Excellent. Nice. Tons of folks here. Nice to see everybody as well. We are recording this session. And so if you have to leave early, or if you know someone who missed it, we will be sharing the recording. It's going to be up on our Sense and Respond Press YouTube channel, very, very popular channel. And so we'll put it up there as well. We're going to do a Q&A at the end of the conversation. Alla and I are going to have a bit of a fireside chat conversation. We are going to do a Q&A. My guess is all of you have at this point used Zoom probably more times than you care to admit to yourselves. So please use the Q&A module to ask the questions, and then I will share them with Alla once we finish the discussions. We'll do about 30 minutes of discussion and then 30 minutes of Q&A. So as your questions come up, please do put them in the Q&A box. If I notice them in the chat, I will ask you to move them over there, because it's good to keep them all there as well. If you stay to the end, we are going to do a book giveaway as well as a one-on-one session with Alla giveaway, and those will be announced afterwards. And this is an interactive webinar, and so please do feel free to participate, comment in the chat, and then of course put your questions in the Q&A box as well as we move forward. Before we get started, I wanted to give Alla a few minutes actually to introduce herself in case you don't know who she is. So Alla, take it away.
Thanks, Jeff. So I'm very happy to be here, and I previously, before becoming a work relationship expert, was a designer, and so have been in the tech and design field for over 15 years now. And what I've noticed and where I've moved to is to become a work relationship expert specifically focused on teams. So creating trust on teams, creating safety on teams, and coaching team leaders to do that for their teams and their organizations as well. And I think the thing I believe in the most is that great working relationships create great teams. And that's what I'm trying to create in the world.
Amazing. And that's a good mission to be on. I like it.
Tough one though.
Yeah, no, and look, and you know, the kind of good and bad of that is that my guess is there's plenty of work for you to do.
Yes.
But that's at least the work's getting done, which is great. So, and folks, I'm Jeff Gothelf. Among other things, I'm the co-founder of Sense and Respond Press with Josh Seiden, where we've been lucky enough to publish Alla's book. And if you haven't picked up a copy, you should pick it up. It's available on pretty much anywhere that you buy books online, and it's available in print, print, digital, and audiobook. Audiobook, I think, exclusively on Audible, but the other versions are available in other places as well. The book is called The Culture of Safety, And it's the latest release, building a work environment where people can think, collaborate, and innovate. And the books that you see on screen in front of you are the most recent releases from Sense and Respond Press. We've done published about 15 books at this point, which is pretty amazing when you think about it in the past 3 years. All short, all practical, all very tactical, and all focused on important business topics for today. Everything from organizational agility to digital transformation, design, product management, et cetera. And you can see just here, we're talking about a culture of safety. We're talking about redefining organizational culture with Tom Bradbury's book. In fact, we have a webinar with Tom Bradbury tomorrow, right at this time as well. So if you're interested in that, watch my Twitter feed for a link to register for that. Ethical product development from Pavani Reddy, very, very important, very big topic right now. OKRs with Natalia Helso and Sonia Mevis, big topic there. These days, very popular topic. And we did a webinar just last month with Kate Leto about hiring product managers. So as you can see, lots and lots of books, and those are just 5 of the 15 that we've got published. Alla and I are going to chat, do a little fireside chat, talk about her book, and get a better sense of what's going on with psychological safety generally in the workplace, or just safety in the workplace in general. And then, like I said, if you've got questions, please do put them in the Q&A box, and obviously any comments in the chat. And so with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and we're going to get started. And my first question to you, and remember, folks, just to stick around till the end of the chat for the giveaway for the book, as well as the session with Alla. So why write this book? Why did you write it? What was the driver?
Yeah. So what really was the impetus for writing this book was that right before writing the book, I spent 2 years in a work environment where I didn't feel safe. And what that looked like for me, and that can come in many different ways, and I want to talk about that, but what that looked like for me in that specific environment was, it was a culture of people going around, so my teammates and my supervisors going around purposefully trying to find what everyone is doing wrong, literally writing it down,
Wow.
quoting the things they thought that you said that were wrong.
To what end? I mean, why were they doing this?
I still don't know. Okay. I mean, I honestly still don't know, but that was the culture of it. The cover, I mean, what they said was, oh, this is feedback, but it wasn't even directed. This feedback wasn't even directly given to me. It was then given to my supervisor as in a sort of like tattletale sort of way. Look what all the things that Alla did wrong. Wow. So I spent 2 years with this. Wow. And what ended up over time happening for me is I literally stopped wanting to come to work, like physically when we still had offices, right. When we still went to office, I avoided coming to work. I actually started to get very sick. I wanted to avoid the people that are, that specifically engaged in this behavior. And when I asked for management, for support, I actually got gaslit, and I said, "This, like, you're overreacting. This isn't happening," and I got threatened. My job got threatened. I was told, "Well, you're going to get fired if you don't change the behaviors, like around the things that people are pointing out." Again, not speaking directly to me about it, and so it was increasingly. It felt like a very traumatic experience for me, and I eventually just ended up leaving.
Wow, and you were getting physically sick?
Yes, I was getting physically sick.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's like this kind of text, and I know this is very much overt toxicity where it could be more subtle in other environments, but this kind of toxicity literally impacts our health, and especially over an extended period of time. So it affected my physical health. It definitely affected my mental health, all of those things. And, like the way that it affected my work was I couldn't think straight. Like I didn't have as much resources to be able to concentrate, to do good work. So my work suffered, right? And I also didn't feel safe if I was in meetings with these people to speak up, to give an idea, say like, I'm concerned about something, or hey, question anything, push back on anything. I just didn't want to say anything. I didn't know what was going to be used against me, right?
Wow.
And so I just like varies like over time to slowly just shut down and shut down. And I know that's like an extreme case, but when I left that job, I looked back at a lot of my jobs and I realized this is an experience I've had over and over again, not to this extreme,
Right.
but this is an experience I've had over and over again in different ways. And it's such a common and normalized way of working. And I was like, no, I need to, like, I really want to create much safer environments for people to be able to relate to each other, to have each other's backs, to work well together. And so that's why I wrote the book.
Got it. And you don't obviously, I'm not going to ask you to name names or anything, but can you give us sort of a generic description of the organization? Was it a large enterprise?
It was a large
startup?
multinational organization.
A multinational, right? And this was happening to multiple folks within this practice.
Yeah,
Wow.
this was the culture of the company. So this was happening to many people. And I actually, because it's such a large organization, I transferred from one department where this was happening to a completely different department, and it was still happening. And so this is kind of a pervasive cultural thing within this very large organization.
Wow. Okay.
I thought I was getting away with it, like I'm getting away from it by transferring to some other team, and it wasn't the case.
Interesting. And look, I mean, one of the things and we talk a lot about culture in a variety of different contexts and a variety of different books. This stuff this is modeled behavior, right? So people don't come into work and start acting this way. They see others doing this, right? They see their bosses doing this, and they're like, "Oh, this is what I need to do to survive here." Is that right?
That's correct. And I came in when I came into this, to this organization. Obviously, I didn't have the preconceived notion this was going to happen, right? And what I guess I learned over time is this was very much a gotcha culture. Like we're looking out to get you to see where you're falling short, where you're not, performing, quote unquote.
So 2 years later, you decide to look, this is ridiculous. You reflect back and you're saying, look, this is not a unique experience for me. This has happened to me multiple times. And so you set out to try to tell a different story about this, which is where the book comes out. And so you start down your journey of writing this book. And what did you discover along the way?
Well, what I discovered is kind of from a more scientific perspective, how we as human beings are wired. And what we're wired to do, how we're wired to survive in the world is in a tribe. Like that's originally how we used to live, many thousands of years ago, is in tribal ways where the group kept you safe physically. Like, so a tiger will not come and eat you because other people are watching out for that. You have folks kind of literally physically looking out for your back.
Right.
And that is how our brain is wired. So safety, when we feel safety, that is something that's created in relationship with other people. I know there's other kind of leaders or thought leaders in the industry that say you can create safety by yourself. You can create safety for yourself. You cannot biologically do that. Safety is a feeling that gets created in relationship with other people. And again, that kind of harks back to how we used to live together. And also without that safety, our biological system gets activated in that fight, flight, freeze way. And so any blood that we have rushing into the part of our brain that thinks, the prefrontal cortex, that's the part of our brain that actually thinks, analyzes, organizes. The blood actually is like the brain will take blood away from that so that it's to try to keep you safe, to try to keep you physically alive. And what happens is this is why I also felt this way. Like I couldn't think. And when we don't feel safe in our teams, in our groups, we literally can't think. And research has found that our operating IQ, so the IQ that we're currently operating in any moment, drops by half when we can't think. So if an average operating IQ is between 100 and 120 IQ points, if we don't feel safe, and if we don't, especially if we don't feel safe chronically, within a group that we're working in, it drops by half to about 50 to 70 IQ points.
That's remarkable. And look, I want to double down on what you said. I just want to kind of emphasize it because that's new to me, right? We always think like we can create safety for ourselves, right? I feel like I can do that, but I think what you said was remarkable is that actually we can't, that it's actually completely determined by the people who are around us. Like how, like do we feel safe in that relationship with those people? And then you're saying, look, if the situation doesn't, if people don't feel safe in a particular situation, then their capacity to actually operate productively, successfully, in a meaningful way is reduced in half,
it's reduced in half, which I think it's so huge. Like, it was shocking to me when I found that out. But also I was like, oh, this is why, to me, I was like, oh, now I realize why I couldn't think, like I couldn't do my job well. So much of my resources mentally, emotionally were spent trying to deal with this feeling that I like, trying to avoid people, trying to have workarounds, trying not to say anything, being scared, rather than actually using that energy, that resources to thinking about work, innovating, coming up with new ideas.
Wow. It's crazy. You think about tribal living, right? So granted, we don't do that.
We don't do that anymore,
right? But nevertheless, right, in that, if our brains are wired by that experience, or are kind of wired by that evolutionary experience, my initial thought would be that we would always be seeking physical safety, right? I don't want to get physically hurt. Like you said, I don't want to get eaten by a tiger, right? I don't want to be, killed by a rival tribe, that type of thing.
Or freeze to death like I did almost in Texas.
Of all places. Yes, exactly. But there has to be more to the different variations of safety, especially today, right? So and again, I wasn't there, and so I can't make any assumptions, but would you say, generally speaking, people do people have, like, especially in an office environment, do they have physical safety concerns, or are there other types of safety that they're actually dealing with, concerns in an office environment?
Yeah. In an office environment, I would actually say there are a lot of physical safety concerns that people are not aware of. Okay. Because again, there's a certain way of working and being in an office together that's been normalized, but will feel unsafe to certain people. So so there are three types of safety, right, that we can consider, and that we will talk about, and I write about in my book. There's physical safety, which is that safety of like, am I going to live? Like, is my life in any danger physically, right? Yeah. Emotional safety is, can I express my emotions in a way that is safe without having retribution around it? And psychological safety, which there's been a lot of talk about, Google's Aristotle project, Amy Edmondson spoke about this, which is being able to, the Fearless Organization. Yeah. So being able to admit mistakes or ask questions or offer new ideas without the fear of embarrassment or punishment from the team. Okay. Yeah. But in the office, this is where like there's a big miss for people. People think our bodies in an office environment are just there to move us from meeting to meeting, but they're not. There's actually a lot of field folks, if your body's different, a different size, a different shape, a different color, a different age, maybe a different ability, all of that, if your body is not included, not valued, not respected, and all the way to harassed in the work environment, this is the first point where your IQ is going to start to drop. Like, this is the first gate that has to feel safe for you as a human being, in order for you to be able to think. So before you can even get to psychological safety and that fearless organization, first I need to know that my body, regardless of what it looks like, and regardless of its ability, regardless of its age, gender, is valued, respected, and included.
Mm.
And in like before, traditionally, even now, like even during COVID times, there are people that may not feel comfortable turning their video on. That meal will actually feel physically threatening to their body, whether they're consciously aware of it or not, will feel physically threatening to their body. There are these are conversations that are not had in the workplace, but need to be had, which are, hey, like what are kind of considerations regarding your specific body that we need to talk about, that we need to agree on, like new norms, new agreements that we need to make so that people do feel safer in their bodies.
And then that's just the beginning of things, right? So if I don't feel comfortable just kind of physically manifesting in the workplace, well, then emotionally, I'm going to be much more reluctant to speak out.
Right.
And then, of course, at this point, it's like my contributions again are, like you said, it's like reduced in half and potentially even further than that. Do all three? So physical, emotional, psychological safety. Do all three of those have to be present at all times? Are there situations where it's just one or the other, or is it kind of like where there's smoke, there's fire type of thing?
Well, if you want people's, I guess in a work environment, if you want people to be able to contribute their absolute best to perform, then all three have to be present. But like physical safety has to be present before emotional safety can be present. And physical and emotional safety have to be present before psychological safety can be present. So right now, I guess just given the prevalence of that people know about psychological safety, they often come to me and they ask me, how do I create psychological safety in my environment? And I have to go back and I'd be like, okay, well, let's look to see, is there physical safety? Is there emotional safety? And emotional safety is actually a big stopping point for people in the work environment, because it is just as the most subtle thing that happens very regularly, where somebody will say, well, I'm concerned about this, or my feelings got hurt when somebody made this comment, and somebody will just say, oh, don't worry about it, you're just being sensitive, you're overreacting.
Yeah.
Just dismissing it, like very lightly, like it's like, oh, don't worry about it, it'll be okay. Right? What that tells my brain is it's not okay to express how I'm feeling. It starts to help me doubt, oh, am I overreacting? Like, am I blowing this out of proportion? Rather than whatever I'm feeling is valid, right?
Yeah.
So now I don't feel safe to express how I'm feeling. There's no way I'm going to be able to collaborate at that point. Like like that completely blocks my ability to collaborate effectively, because I'm not going to be able to talk to you and question your ideas or tell you, hey, like I'm kind of worried about going down this avenue, or like, am I going to be dismissed again? Am I overreacting? Maybe I shouldn't say anything.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is fascinating, and we have a poll we want to do and a couple more things I want to talk to you about. Folks, if you've got questions for Alla, please do put them in the Q&A box. I've seen a couple folks do that already. Thank you for doing that. I was reminded, as you were talking, I was reminded of a situation I faced years ago. It's my first real professional job, so like 75 years ago. And the question I'm curious, like what your take on this. So it was a consulting environment, a services environment, and there was we were the consultants. There was a team of us. We were on client site, and we were meeting with the client, and the project manager from our side, in the middle of the meeting, just lost it. It's one of those things that like stuck with me for literally 20 years. And he lost it, and he just exploded angrily. Yeah, but not so much at the client, but at the situation. The pressure was too much. He's like, I can't handle the pressure. I can't handle the situation more. I can't do this. And he stormed out of there. Right. And it was interesting because we were all shocked. Like no one knew what to do.
Yeah.
right? And so in that situation, and look, that is outside of the norm of office behavior, right? People
Right.
don't just explode in frustration, generally speaking, at the office. I'm not sure that, like, do you think that was that do you think that was a reaction to a lack of safety? Like this was
Right.
building up, or like how would you sort of
Mm.
parse an event like that, and how would you like how do you then talk to the participants in that meeting and to hopefully keep that from happening again in the future?
Yeah. What I'm hearing, this is my interpretation, obviously I wasn't there,
Right,
but what
right.
I'm hearing was that there was a lack of emotional safety. And I saw a question like, what's the difference between emotional and psychological safety?
Yeah,
So emotional safety is, again, in a group, the shared belief that all emotions are valid and the expression of any emotion is welcome. So what's happened, and I mean any emotion, including anger,
yeah,
right? But it didn't have to come to the boiling point. What didn't happen was there was no intentional space or safety for this project manager to say at any point along this project, I'm feeling stressed out,
yeah.
I'm feeling scared, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm not sure if I can handle this, I have other pressures in my life that I'm facing, and I'm really struggling right
Mhm.
now.
Right.
And I feel scared. I don't know if I'm going to get fired. Like you can say, like, I feel scared. I don't know if I'm going to get fired. Like
Yeah.
to be able to have that conversation with anyone on the team, right? It doesn't even have to be their supervisor. Like it can be anyone on the team. That's emotional safety. Just to say, like, I'm really feeling, I have feelings. There's something happening for me. I need to express them and have that be heard. And what happened is like just over time, he like tried to push it away, which is what we often do in professional environments, right? Like don't be so emotional, like kind of push it away, suppress it, ignore it. And it built up and it built up to the point where it just cracked. And this is the situation that happened.
Right.
But it didn't have to happen.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, if I recall, look, this was Web 1.0 culture at the height of it, right? So
Right.
millions of dollars being thrown at everything. None of us knew what we were doing back
Right.
then, right? And we're all sort of learning on the job, and there was a lot of pressure to deliver, deliver, deliver,
Yeah.
deliver.
Yeah.
People were throwing money at us, and you're right. Like there was definitely no place for him to raise his hand, and nobody raised hands and said, "I don't know," or
I
I
don't
don't."
know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have no idea how to
All
do.
he, I think all he needed was just a place to say, I don't know what I'm doing and I'm scared.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, and that there's always that risk. Well, if you don't know what you're doing, what are you doing in this job? Right. And
Right.
so it's
And that
crazy.
goes to physical safety. So if I don't know what I'm doing and I'm scared, am I going to get fired? Meaning, is my livelihood in danger? Will I be able to support myself and my
Right.
family? Right
Yeah.
now, like that's going to kind of back down the ladder to physical safety. Will I be able to literally physically take care of my basic human needs of shelter, food, etc.? Right.
Yeah.
Um, and all of that because there isn't space to just say, hey, I'm scared.
Interesting. That's really good analysis, by the way. I've been thinking about that for more than 20 years, and and never really put that lens on it. And just thought of it when you were saying something. So,
Thank you.
thanks for analyzing that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That was not in our that's not in our notes for what we're going to talk about. So I appreciate you going with that improv a little
I
bit.
hope you felt a little therapeutic there.
I did. Like I feel better about that actually because I really like. Look, so here's my perspective. So I was my first real job. So I was 25. All of us were like, we don't know what we're doing. We're just kind of trying to figure all this out. And this guy loses him. We're like, that guy's psycho. Like, what's going on? Like,
Right.
he's a lunatic. We're never working with that guy again. Like, that was
Yeah.
roughly the reaction, right? Like,
Right.
nobody wanted that guy in their team anymore
Yeah.
because no one wanted to risk. And he did this in front of a client too, right? So
Yeah.
everybody was
Yeah.
like, whoa.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Hey, let's get a sense of how folks feel about where they work and who they work with. We put a poll together with 3 questions. I'm going to launch that poll now for you folks, and then we'll do Q&A with because a lot of good questions coming in, and I want to make sure we get to as many of them
Yeah.
as we can. So I've launched the poll, and there are 3 questions in here about each kind of safety that Alla's been talking about. So folks,
Let me provide the definition again as folks are thinking about it.
yeah,
So physical safety, again, safety is created in a relationship, in a group, in a team of people, is the shared belief within that team that every physical body, regardless of size, shape, color, age, or ability, is valued, respected, and included. And you can think about your own physical body. Do you feel like your body, the way it looks, the size of it, your color, your age, your ability is valued, respected, and included? Emotional safety is the shared belief that all emotions are valid and the expression of any emotion is welcome. And I really mean any, that there aren't any off-limit emotions from at work. And psychological safety is the shared belief that no one on the team will embarrass or punish anyone else for admitting a mistake, asking a question, or offering a new idea.
got it. That's super helpful. All right, we're getting some votes in. I love watching the polls in real time. Just watching them.
I wish I could see it. I don't see it.
Oh, you can't see the polls in real time. Yeah. So we have about half the folks have voted so far, maybe about 60%. Really interesting. And I know I'm going to save my question about remote teams because Susan's got a question about remote teams in the Q&A, and I'm hoping to get to that. So, but let's see, about 65, almost 70% of the folks have voted at this point. Let's take just maybe just another minute or so. Christy says submit doesn't work. Well, I apologize. Maybe it's a Zoom thing. For all their massive success and huge revenue, I feel like design has still been a secondary priority for Zoom. Sorry, Christy. All right, folks, take maybe 30 more seconds if you're going to vote in the poll, just to give us a sense of how you're feeling about it. Feels like the popcorn has slowly started to stop popping. So about 75% of the folks have voted. All right, 10 more seconds, and then I'm going to shut down the poll, and then let's see where we net out here. Okay, not people. I said 10 seconds, and people are like, "Oh crap! Let me fill in the answers really quick." Now, that looks like Christy got it. Excellent. Yeah, I think you got to answer all three in order to submit. I think that's part of it. Okay, with 81% of the precinct reporting, let's end the poll, and I'll share the results. So everybody should be able to see these results now. Alla, what do you make of these results?
Looking at it. So physically folks feel safer, very safe. That may be due right now to the more virtual environment that we're in for physical safety. Only somewhat emotionally safe. So 30% only feel somewhat emotionally safe, which I expect in the work environment. And it's split between somewhat safe and safe in psychological safety specifically.
Interesting.
So about that's interesting. Yeah. Obviously every culture and every company is different. I actually suspect that there's less physical safety than people believe. It's just we don't have any way until now to really assess it, to evaluate it, to really understand and even reflect how safe do I feel physically in my work environment. I mean, for emotional psychological safety, kind of on the somewhat range, which is what I expected in most work environments.
Yeah, and it's most of the clients that I work with too. It's like yeah, we can say whatever we want as long as it agrees with what the boss wants.
Well, the boss,
or
doesn't make the boss look bad in front of his boss, you know.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Excellent. Well, look, folks have been putting questions in the Q&A, and I think there's some really good questions in here as well. So let's dive in. And Deanna was first with her question. Deanna asks, are there questions that someone can ask to help discern how psychologically safe a company may be during an interview process. So if you're considering going to work for someone, how do you find out what's the level of psychological safety? What questions would you ask? Really nice question.
Well, that's a great question. I would ask whoever's interviewing you the last time, ask them for an example of the last time they talked about a mistake that they made to their team or to their supervisor, and what was the response or reaction. And also listen for how recently that has happened. You can even ask, are there any types of meetings or structures for this kind of discussion? And then also ask, where are opportunities to offer new ideas or contradictory ideas? And give an example, ask them for an example. When have you offered a contradictory or an unpopular opinion in your team? How did that conversation go? When did that happen? So those are some questions to ask.
Excellent. And again, if you've got questions, just if you can put them in the Q&A, that would be great. Cool. I answered the difference in emotional and psychological safety question with the text that we discussed prior to this. So, and you've covered it a couple of times now. So we're going to move on to Jonathan's question. Jonathan asks, any practical tips for team leaders to improve psychological safety? We have a fairly friendly and non-hierarchical small team, but still I get the feeling some colleagues don't always speak their concerns. So what can Jonathan do to increase psychological safety in his small team?
So what you're talking about, Jonathan, is emotional safety. If somebody's having a concern, that means they're having a feeling about it. And so the way to encourage that is to encourage emotional literacy. So, helping people, there's really not that many emotions. There's primary emotions, happy, angry, sad, scared, just 4. That's it. Happy, angry, sad, scared. Every other emotion is a combination of those. Just having some emotional literacy on the team, where even at let's say a team meeting, you go around and you do a check-in. How are you feeling today? And all the answer is either happy, sad, scared, angry. That's it. Just use one of the 4 words. And so once people, and then this happens over time, once people's nervous system says, oh, it's okay, they will learn, it's okay to say that nothing happened to me. I wasn't dismissed. I wasn't punished. There was no repercussion to saying how I feel. They're going to be able to then, over time, this is not a fast process because human beings don't move that fast. Over time, they will be able to say, hey, when you mentioned that we should go in this direction, I got scared because XYZ, because I think this is going to happen. Then they're going to be able to voice their concerns. So I would suggest taking a step back and trying to cultivate emotional safety on that team first.
Got it. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, next question. And I think this one's really interesting for the world that we live in now. I'm an Agile coach. Any tips for me working with teams remotely? I'm trying to rely on my personality for building new relationships with teams, but can I be more intentional in my interactions with them?
Yes, absolutely. And I have a lot of ideas in the book for that specifically. And this is my recommendation of how to start building kind of physical, emotional, or psychological safety muscles on any team. The first place to try is in meetings. So look at the meetings that you're having with people, because those are the places where we're interacting together as a group of people, and safety is created in a group of people. Okay. So if you're wanting to build more trust in relationships, more safety in the relationships with folks, you could start up a new type of meeting where you just talk about mistakes with each other. It could be what I call in the book a mistake-abration. So mistake celebration. Everybody gets to say, oh, I messed this up this week. It's almost like a mistake stand-up. I messed this up this week, and we celebrate who got the really lighthearted way. Who had the worst mistake, this week, and have it be really fun and lighthearted, not as a punishment. Or you can have us, I know some folks are, especially in the remote times, are doing like Friday lunch hours where you can, and I know it's distributed, so lunchtime may not be the same for everyone, but having an hour on Friday where you just come together, you don't talk about work at all. You just talk about your life and how are things going, and have just social time with folks. There's also a meeting you could potentially do, which is called like processing tensions, where people get to come together and say, here are the things that are bothering me. Here are the things I'm upset about, and get to vent to each other and feel supported and see how supported they are by everyone. And so that's what I recommend, is like looking at the meetings, how many of those meetings that you have are purely tactical and kind of talking about execution, how many speak to our biological needs for emotional safety, for psychological safety, and try to have a little bit more of that. They don't have to be long, they don't have to even be that frequent, but just the fact that there's space for that to happen is really important.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Let's go to this next one. Now, I know Pavan had to leave the webinar a little bit early, but I think this is an interesting question. He asks, how might we teach our teams that there are many ladders to the top to instill a sense of empowerment or alignment in established teams? And I'm going to try to clarify this a little bit, and hopefully, and do it accurately, hopefully. Is people feel like, hey, there's like in the example that you shared originally for what drove you to write the book in the first place was this toxic workplace that you had. People believed that there was one way to the top, and it was to behave in this particular way, in this highly toxic way. Mm-hmm. I think that's true in a lot of organizations, true in the sense that people believe that there is a way to rise in the ranks, to succeed and so forth. And what I think the question is referring to here is, how can we make it obvious, or make it more obvious to folks, that there are multiple ways to succeed and to excel inside the organization, so that they don't have to emulate this modeled behavior that they might be seeing. They can actually do it another way.
Well, I think the best way to do that is through the leaders of the company sharing stories. I think it's through storytelling, but sharing stories in a very vulnerable way. Say like, this way did not work for me, but this way did. And this is my specific leadership style. And it's not traditional maybe of what people think of in business, but this is how it's worked for me in this company. But also to talk about, hey, like there's things that I tried that didn't work and for the culture and this company, and this is what didn't work for me. And so having a diverse amount of stories that maybe, and I almost want to encourage, like, that are different in a lot of senses, will provide people kind of that idea. And that note, like, will open up the possibility for people in their mind that, hey, there is more than one way to go up the ladder specifically.
So I'm going to tack on a follow-on question, because look, storytelling of people's success, right? Generally, and I'm going to generalize a little bit here, so forgive me if I overstep, right? But generally speaking, certainly in Western culture, broadcasting your story of success inside an organization is not common. Certainly, there are people who do that and talk about how great they are and how awesome they are. But generally speaking, people aren't going to tell their own story about success, right? I did these 6 things and I got a promotion, right? So does a lot of this, let me reframe the question. Who then is responsible for telling these stories that enable more diverse behavior, greater feelings of safety for people to express their ideas and so forth? Who's responsible for that, for telling those stories? Yeah,
well, I believe the leaders of the company are responsible for telling those stories. But again, I also think that they need to be vulnerable and say, it's not like everything I did was perfect, and I just had this easy road to the top. But here's like a year I spent with things not working, and I felt stressed out, and I just didn't work. And then I tried something new, and this did work. And really, really like really demonstrating and modeling emotional safety, right?
Yeah.
Like when through that vulnerability. But also there's a way to create a ritual in a company around this. So anybody can provide to start kind of building up this muscle. So
Mm.
a really simple ritual could be having like a Slack channel. I'm just using Slack as an example, an asynchronous channel called brags, where people get to and have again a space to brag about their accomplishments, about things that they've done, and be celebrated by other people in the company. And not being seen as selfish or arrogant, but being seen as a muscle to help build for people so that they can talk about the work that they do and be seen in that and be witnessed in that by other people.
That's super cool. Yeah, I've never seen that. I'd love to see that. That would be really, really interesting, and see people celebrate themselves and each other.
Celebrate themselves and each other, not just appreciations, not just gratitudes. I know a lot of people do have gratitude, like Slack channels and things like that, but really like a chance to just, and it feels uncomfortable. Like it really does. It feels super uncomfortable, especially in the beginning, to start to do that. But just to have a brag channel where it's okay to do that. And it's okay to feel uncomfortable doing that too. So
when I do executive coaching and leadership coaching, generally we're talking about organizational agility, less so about cultures of safety. But I do speak explicitly about humility, right? Because I do believe that humility drives learning. And that means that a leader doesn't have to be the CEO, but a leader or leaders in the organization have to stand up in front of the people that they manage and basically or explicitly say, I was wrong.
Yeah.
Right? That's the thing I always coach them. So you're going to have to model this behavior, because if we want people to learn, they have to know it's okay to make mistakes, and there won't be any negative repercussions. And they're going to model that from you. And so you have to be and I have to define humility for them, because they misunderstand it. But why is it so difficult for leaders in an organization to be vulnerable, to be humble, to stand up in front of their folks and admit that they were wrong?
It's the scariest thing to do. I mean, what is vulnerability? It's making something that matters to you, basically vulnerable to somebody else's actions, right? It's exposing yourself. There's a lot of misconception about vulnerability, that it's weakness. So people are like, well, I can't, if I'm a leader, if I have that title, I'm a leader, then I can't show vulnerability. But also fundamentally, it's about fear. And this, I think, brings up a great point, which is the opposite of safety isn't danger, it's fear. If I feel scared, then I don't feel safe. And so being vulnerable means, why a lot of leaders don't do that is they do not currently know or have the tools, but there is a tool in the book about how to work through your fear so that you're not fear driven, so that you're not a fear-based leader.
Interesting. So good comment, by the way, in the chat from Sanjeev, about the cultural fit for things like a brag channel, right? So he talks about a collectivist culture. The brag channel idea would be DOA. Like there's no,
for sure. But it can be, then, I mean, you can modify that for the culture. So you can have a team brag channel. So what did we collectively as a team accomplish that was great? And what do we want to brag about as a team? Or you can do it at any level. As a company, what are we doing so great as a company, as a collective, that we want to brag about? So, but it still uses that muscle. It doesn't have to be individualistic. And it can be, can still work across different cultures.
We talked about it a little while ago, but there's another question in the Q&A about the differences between building safety for in-house and remote teams, right? So if you're a distributed team, which we all are at the moment, is there anything more you want to add to that conversation? So that kind of, what are the fundamental differences between building safety for co-located versus distributed teams?
Co-located. So this is where physical safety actually comes in, because there's a difference between the physicality, because people that are co-located together have a different relationship physically with each other than people that are remote, right? And so what's really important is to make sure to include the folks that are remote a lot, like much more intentionally, much more thoughtfully. So if you're having a meeting that there are some people that are calling in remote, for example, everyone's remote, everyone's calling in from their personal computer, even if you're sitting next to somebody. And there isn't this difference in environments where, oh, we're all gonna, like 5 of us are gonna be in a meeting room and 15 of us are gonna be remote, right? Like, and then there's that difference in the medium.
Yeah.
And so this is also the point where you have a really, like, you make the point to have a conversation as a team. What will help us work together better given this different separation? What are your concerns? What are your boundaries? Again, personally, as a person physically or as a person remotely. And so it's a conversation that nobody has. People just assume, oh, we're just going to figure it out somehow on the fly and it's going to work. But you actually need to figure it out together as a team and come back to it and learn from it kind of in a very agile way. Like, is this working for us? Is the way that we're working for us? Are people feeling safe? Oh, it's not? Cool. What do we need to change? How do we need to do things differently for our team specifically?
Got it. Excellent. Okay, next question we have in the Q&A. It's a good one, and I like it. How should I encourage my management to attend these seminars? They really need to hear this.
This is going to be very counterintuitive and scary. So I'm going to preface that. I'm going to preface the answer to that. This is going to feel counterintuitive and scary, but you need to be vulnerable and reveal to management that in one of these or 3 of these aspects, you're not feeling safe and you would like their help. And there's this webinar that talks about, or the seminar that talks about this. There's a person that does this work and there's this book about it. Could you just check it out? Because I want to feel safe here and I don't currently. And I would like some help. It's a very scary thing to say.
Yeah. Look, you're relying on them being, forgive me, a human being and having concern for your safety and well-being at that point, right? I mean, there's
correct. Yeah. Or if that's not an option, I mean, I didn't have managers that I thought would be open to this if, in the place that I described that I worked. If that's not an option, then invite, your closest teammates to do this. You can, again, safety is created in a group. You can do this together as a team, all, on a similar level. Invite the team to create safety for each other, protect each other, even from your supervisors or your managers.
Right. If this becomes more than just you, then maybe there's a real issue here. Interesting. Next question that's up is, again, these are really, you guys are doing a great job asking these questions. Thank you. Really good stuff.
They're really hard, guys. Like, this is good. This is good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I like this one. How would you differentiate between people being able to express themselves and their emotions freely and then drama or gossip, right? Like it's a good question, because I'm sure that a lot of safety concerns are dismissed as drama or potentially gossip as well. How do you reconcile these things?
Labeling what somebody is expressing as drama or gossip is gaslighting that person's emotional experience and invalidating them. So people are allowed to have, and we none of us know, because we're not in that person's body. Like each of us like has whatever emotion we have to whatever intensity that we have it. That is true. That is valid. We can't tell a person, say, don't feel this way, or you're feeling too strongly about something, right? Then like, what if we say that again, that's invalidating, that's not creating emotional safety, that's invalidating their experience. If somebody is expressing something with a lot of drama, like the example you gave with a person, right, like that blew up in that meeting, then I would actually then have a conversation deeply, like a deeply compassionate conversation with that individual. It's like, wow, you are having such intense emotions. What's going on for you?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. I want to help. Like, there's something obviously like going wrong. If it's so intense that it can be labeled as drama, right? Then there's something happening for that person, that their emotional needs are not being attended to. Gossip is not necessarily emotions. That's talking about a person, behind their back. So not talking to them directly, right? So if I have an issue with Jeff, but I don't talk to Jeff directly, I'm just like, God, Jeff is just not doing these things and he's so annoying. And if I tell that to somebody else, that's gossip, right?
Yeah.
So gossip is anything I'm not willing to say to the person directly. And that's actually a very toxic behavior, and that completely diminishes safety, psychological safety specifically.
Yeah.
And this is the most common thing I see. How many meetings are people in where there's a back channel? And people are actually expressing their feelings, their needs, all their concerns in that back channel, but saying nothing in a meeting, right? So that's a huge signal. That's like huge red flag about there's no safety here to actually say how I'm feeling.
Right. I gotta imagine though, and look, again, I'm making assumptions here, generalizations, but I gotta imagine the majority of managers, anybody who's in a people management role, the majority of folks are ill-equipped to have these conversations.
Absolutely.
They're not trained, they're not prepared. What do we do about that?
Hire me. I can train them. But no, you're right. Like a lot of time, but also the way that people get promoted into management is also broken, because you get promoted because you're a great IC. You do a great work as an IC.
Yeah.
The set of skills you need to be a great IC is completely different than the set of skills you need to be a great manager. Yeah. So, but oftentimes it's the only way to get promoted, to go up that ladder, right? There's no other avenue for you. Or even if there is, maybe even if there are more like IC, levels of ICs, there isn't, again, that training in-house that's provided to help you build some of these management skills. Yeah. But I feel like that needs to be a prerequisite before you're actually given that role. Like, you take this training and you build up some of these skills before you actually become a manager. And then you're supported by a mentor or by some kind of system internally. Again, this does not exist in most companies. Yeah. When, as a new manager, you're supported so that when these kinds of things come up, you can ask somebody for help, for support, for ideas, for how to handle all of this. Is
the HR community onto this? Like, this is learning and development, right?
This is learning and development. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Are they on this?
No.
No, they're not. The HR community as a whole. I mean, this feels so critical, and it feels like such a key component of what they do.
This is also part of why I wrote the book. Like, the department I was working in that I described in the beginning was an HR department.
Oh, geez.
So they're not even kind of like walking their own talk there.
Right.
This is, I think, the biggest message that I want to make sure to come across and to share is that people and groups, like when we work together, have to have safety first before anything else can happen. Like, I want so much more for work. Like, I want work to feel like a community, to feel super, to be very humane, to feel very loving. Honestly, I want work to be a place where people come and they feel really loved and cared for. I can't have any of that without safety first. So we can't have good work without safety first. Like, this is just the foundation, just the fundamentals, and it's not there right now.
Wow. And on that note, we are going to wrap up for today. That's the hour that we have here together today.
Oh, it went so fast.
I know, and there's so much. There's more questions to answer. So, folks, if you've got more questions, please reach out to Alla. That's her URL there at the bottom, spokenwheel.co. If you do get a chance, please do pick up her book. I put the link, the Amazon link to it, in the chat a couple of times. You can click on it there. Obviously, if you want to reach out to any of us, please feel free to do that. Alla, thank you so much. This was amazing. The time flew by.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
There's so much more to discuss here. Congratulations on your book. And I look forward to hearing more about all of your, about your impact in the workplace in the coming months and years. So thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to do the
Oh, folks, yeah. So about the giveaway.
The winners.
So we're going to reach out to folks, the winners of the book and the counseling, the one-on-one session with Alla after the fact. So we have a list of all the email addresses. We're going to choose some winners from that, and we will reach out to you within the next week to do that. And so look out for an email from us. And then we'll let everybody know when the video is posted to the Sense and Respond YouTube channel, where all our webinars are. And maybe we'll even see you tomorrow at our webinar with Tom Bradbury.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jeff, and everyone who came. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thanks very much for coming.